Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Divergent Dialogues. Today, we will be talking about the power of emotions. So unfortunately, Tina and I were a little bit disappointed when it came to this topic because we both found it really difficult to actually find research. And a lot of the research that I found, it was incredibly recent. Tina, did you want to talk a bit about your experience of trying to find some research for this topic?
Yeah, so we were really trying to find some like research and studies on more specific emotions like ADHDers or autistic folks' experience of happiness, sadness, anger, excitement, a little bit more nuanced information as opposed to like just the broad information that really just discusses emotional dysregulation. And it was a real letdown that there is really nothing out there that talks about this, but yet there is a fair bit that talks about how neurodivergent folk experience emotions differently, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it lands. And from there, it's more about how people might behave in the context of emotion, or and it felt disappointing.
Yeah. Also, if anyone's listening and there is any research that they're aware of, please let us know. We'd really love to read it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think I guess when I was looking into the research for autistic folks and emotions, is that a lot of the literature was a lot around autistic people not being able to identify emotions in others and also empathy. And I guess that just really spoke to me in that a lot of the research, it was about the other person. Like it was about autistic people not being able to identify emotions in neurotypical people, or other people feeling like autistic people don't have empathy. There was really nothing about the emotional experience of the autistic person, and it
Yeah.
just made so much sense to me. I'm like, no wonder, like, in therapy, there isn't necessarily a protocol for working with autistic folks with, complex emotions and that kind of thing, is because we actually don't fully understand that, at least in the general like research in the literature. There's not a solid understanding of what that looks like. So a lot of the research is about how autistic people aren't presenting neurotypically and how we can get them to present that way, as opposed to going, oh, hey, you're an autistic person, let's talk to you, let's help, like, let's understand what's going on for you so that we can support you. So I was equally disappointed, but also not surprised. It helped to make a lot of sense to a lot of the issues that a lot of autistic people experience, particularly when accessing supports and therapies.
Yeah. And in the ADHD space, it was I guess again about how us ADHDers with our emotions impact those around us, because it was about like the behavior stuff that comes with big emotions, whether it be experiencing meltdown or hyperactivity. It was our emotional experiences were neatly packaged up into, I guess, symptoms, as opposed to how does the ADHD interpret, events and things from an emotional perspective.
Yeah. And that's a big part of why I'm so keen for my PhD research, which will be qualitative research, because I'm super interested in hearing the perspectives of autistic folks. Like, obviously, I am autistic, but that's just my personal experience. I really want to understand in depth other autistic folks' experiences so I can integrate that into my research and into my practice. And there's just such a big gap there, and in the research and the literature. And also, there's been a lot of talk, especially in probably the last year or two, around, oh, everyone's getting a diagnosis and everyone's got ADHD these days. but the thing, and I guess like there's been a lot more advocates and people speaking up about ADHD and autism. And it's like, well, no wonder, because we have to like kick and scream and jump up to be like, hey, we're here. Like, can you like support us? Can you like research us, please? In a neurodivergent affirming way, preferably. Like, it's,
Yes.
you know, when you're from these marginalized groups, sometimes you do have to kick up a fuss to get anything done. So yeah, I think it was really important for me, this with this topic, because it just opened my eyes to how much is missing in the literature.
Yeah, I did come across some good work from Thomas Brown. He talks about like concepts of emotional flooding, although it's still sort of in that space of emotional overwhelm and dysregulation. But what I really liked about his work was that it talks about like that big flood of emotion that can come, but also in that space of excitement or love or, you know, happiness, and how yeah, as ADHDers, we do experience things in that really sort of big, intense way, and that's not always problematic. You know, some like the positive reframes are like really passionate and you know, really dedicated, committed, and excited, enthusiastic, and these are things that we really like in ourselves and, you know, in others. But yeah, sometimes I guess it can get a bit confusing if you do experience emotional flooding and those really big, intense, positive emotions, because if you're in a situation and you don't experience things at that degree, you might misinterpret it as being, oh, well, I'm not that into this situation because I don't feel this way. And I think this is a great example of why we need more research on these experiences, because it's not necessarily the case. You might, like, there's a million reasons why you might not be experiencing happiness, excitement, love in that really big way in this instance. And
Yeah.
if we can understand all of those contributing factors a little bit better, then yeah, we understand ourselves better.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I'm pretty sure there's been a few times when I've been really excited about something and I've almost like hyperventilated and had a panic attack, because I get so excited in my body and it's just so intense, and then it like turns into this other thing. But I guess that was before I knew about like this emotional flooding
Yeah.
experience. And now like I know, I'm like, okay, Caitlin, like I'm really excited, this feels good, but I know that this is like a bit of a journey here. And I don't get freaked out about it anymore, because I'm like, I know that's just part of my emotional experience, and because I'm just so excited. And it's I think unfortunately in our society a lot of emotions are shunned, and
Yeah.
those kind of big outward expressions of emotion are really shunned. And it's really unfortunate, because emotions are a really beautiful part of life, and we should be allowed to enjoy them and enjoy them in the way that we want to. And we don't want to create fear around emotions, because I find that with a lot of my clients, they're getting really overwhelmed by what is actually just their emotions, and they're perceiving them to be bad or negative or anxiety or depression. It's like, well, no, that's just actually your emotions. Like, obviously sometimes there is that anxiety and depression component, but yeah, it's really interesting when I start normalizing emotions, they start feeling more regulated, they start having more positive experiences with their emotions.
Yeah, and touching on that outer world part around yeah, like societal expectations and restrictions, I think fits here, because you're right, where in our society, within our culture, big expressions of emotion, it's not okay. Even like for adults, if we are really excited about something and we're having that big expression, there we are shamed for it, whether it's being told that you're being immature, you're being silly, or even playfully, like, oh, you're acting like a kid at Christmas, sort of thing. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not being taken seriously now. So yeah, having that big expression of emotion, it takes away our legitimacy as an adult.
And I mean, this isn't just for neurodivergent people. I think just the general population could do with a good dose of normalizing of outward expression of emotions.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, but, you know, when someone's really passionate, I love being around that. I love being around that. It's like, ooh, like, give me some of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that as well.
Yeah. And I think also if someone's feeling open to expressing that kind of emotion around you, then it just shows that connection and that trust that you have with that person as well.
Yeah, I agree, because that's when you can sort of like unmask, and you're able to sort of be yourself, and yeah, just be emotional. Even like if we talk about the other end, where the emotions that we're experiencing are more sort of difficult and uncomfortable, again, if you are having big expressions around those more uncomfortable, difficult emotions, then you might be being labeled as, cranky or moody, or even worse, things like aggressive and negative. But it might just be that you are, being flooded by an emotion, and you just got to, energetically process it by having a discussion or expressing it. But yeah, our society isn't super comfortable with that, and we've kind of got these boundaries that we need to stay within. And it's like, yep, this is where you're allowed to go to positively, this is where you're allowed to go to with the more difficult stuff, and don't go outside of that, because it makes everyone uncomfortable.
And also it's often pathologized as well, which doesn't help.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's really interesting. Despite all our complaining about there not being research, I actually found this really interesting study. So there was a study that was conducted, and it was around facial expressions of young autistic and neurotypical children. They compared the prevalence of positive, negative, neutral, and unknown facial emotions in both groups. The findings suggested that young autistic children may express emotions perceived as unknown, highlighting the importance of understanding their full emotional experience. This study underscores the need to consider autistic traits when assessing emotional expression, and suggests that cataloging unknown expressed emotions could aid in better understanding. So that further, highlighted some of the issues that I found in the research, is that if the researchers that have been conducting this research around investigating whether or not autistic people have emotions, or have empathy, or can recognize emotions, if they don't actually understand how an autistic person expresses those emotions, typically when in the context of what we've just been talking about, a lot of their expression of emotion is shut down, because usually it's it can be expressed outwardly in a big way. So yeah, it calls into question a lot of the research that's been conducted, is that, were the people masking their emotions, or was it just the way that they expressed their emotion wasn't picked up by the researcher because it wasn't a neurotypical aligning expression?
Yeah, that is really interesting, because I guess we just we're accepting of like neurodivergent folk being like having a different brain, and experiencing emotions, communication, all these other parts of life differently. So yeah, why can't we explore the idea that maybe we do have a like additional emotional range that it just hasn't been named yet?
Yeah, that would be a cool study.
That would be a really cool study.
Yeah.
Yeah. what would you name the emotions though? That'd be like a fun part. You know, I often think of those people that find things, you know, like new planets and new islands and all that sort of stuff. And people, like, they go for the most obvious thing. They name it after themselves, which is, you know, fine. That's kind of cool to have a planet named after you. But yeah, like, what would you do if you found a new emotion?
Well, it's really funny. So part of my work is I'll support my clients to find their language around their emotions. And it can be anything. So sometimes they may label their emotions, you know, it might be a song that resonates with that emotion. It might be like a character, a particular character they like from a book or something. Or sometimes it's just like a sound. So it's not like necessarily a like a recognized word. So like it might be like beep boop or something like that. Like it could,
Yeah.
I guess for them, that's how they express that feeling. And then it's great for me because then I know when they say that word, I know what it means for them. Because I don't want to be like, here's a chart of emotions. Where do you fit? It's kind of like, okay, we all have this range of emotions. Where I guess what's your experience and what are your labels for that?
Yeah, no, I like that. And, you know, reflecting back on conversations that we've had, like just at the end of last year, getting all of our podcast stuff and all of that organized, there was a sense of calm, a sense of, you know, feeling where we're meant to be, but all those words didn't fit right. And it was when you said, I feel orientated, that was just like, oh, me too. And I think that word in the context of my emotional state, it kind of like life-changing. It's like I either feel orientated or I'm not. I'm disorientated. And yeah, it changes it when you feel like you're accurately describing what you're feeling.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the issue sometimes when I'm trying to explain my emotions to others is that it's like I have to find the exact right word.
Yeah.
And also sometimes I guess it's hard to explain my emotional experience to others anyway, because a lot of it's in my body and there's not necessarily a word for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's this really difficult thing to
Yeah.
like if I could just be like put, you know, a USB to someone else's brain and be like, here, this is what I'm feeling. That'd be awesome. That'd be much more efficient. But we haven't got there yet.
Yeah. I think that as well. Like, just let me just, you know, like download so you can upload and then you'll understand. Because like I feel that when you don't have the right word, it's like there's all these words that come close to what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing. But if I don't give you the exact right word that feels like it fits, then you're not going to understand, or you might start trying to help me problem solve, giving me a whole bunch of things that aren't going to work because that word didn't quite fit.
Yeah.
So it feels really important to be able to like explain how you're feeling.
Yes.
Properly.
And also be given the space and time to be able to explain that. You know, like when it comes to me and emotions, like, you know, a lot of other things, like you're going to answer like quick. Whereas when it comes to emotions, it takes me time to process, integrate, and then verbalize that. I was also thinking that I'm like, is that a little bit of perfectionism in there, just like waiting for the right word, or is that an autistic thing? I don't know, but yeah, I feel exactly the same. It's like it has to be the exact right word, but the word has to resonate with how I feel. I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right about the needing the space, because like I spend so much time up in my head. But if you're asking me how I feel, I guess my impulse reaction would be to either tell you that yes, my thoughts are currently organized and I'm working through them logically and, you know, effectively, or actually no, there's too much going on and I'm a bit scattered. But feeling is, yeah, like okay, give me a minute. I've got to get out of my head, drop into my body, see what that's like, process it, think about it, and then try and describe it.
Yep. So that's a really good segue into the next thing that I want to talk about, which is alexithymia. So for those that aren't aware of alexithymia, so alexithymia, it's something that's commonly experienced by autistic folks, but not all autistic folks necessarily experience it. So alexithymia is means that you have difficulties in identifying emotions, difficulties describing emotions, and also externally orientated thinking. So people who have alexithymia may focus more on what's going on in their external experience in their world, rather than introspection, and as you said, kind of dropping out of your mind into your body. So yeah, I think that's something that I definitely experience in my day-to-day life, like much like you said, Teena, like I'm very much in that head space, and I guess I'm trying to work on being more in my body and being more in tune with that. What's your thoughts about that, Teena?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same there. I definitely, I think I retreat to my head a lot too, because I guess I don't necessarily know exactly what it is going on in my body. So it's like, you know what? I'm not sure what this is all about. So I'm just going to go back up here where things make sense and, things are in order.
Where I'm orientated.
Yes. Yeah, where it feels orientated, because I find that I will often describe things as, like, oh, I feel like I have a sore toe, or oh my, I've got an upset stomach, or something like that. But it probably isn't. It's probably like that stress response, or yeah, a bit of anxiety in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So alexithymia, it's, I guess, linked with a lot of those struggles with interoception. So difficulty like identifying like internal states. So something that's common for a lot of my clients is that they're like, oh, like I have, I constantly feel sick in the stomach, and then we kind of unpack it a little, and it's like, actually, I think you're feeling anxious there, or like, oh, my heart, it keeps pounding, like I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack, and it's like, actually, I think that's anxiety. That's your body telling you that you're feeling anxious. Another thing as well is that sometimes when I'm finding it difficult to understand my emotions, I'll just randomly get like a song in my head, and it will just play over and over and over again, and until it annoys me. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I'll sit down and I'll listen and I'll look at the lyrics, and often it really aptly describes like how I'm feeling at the time. It's really good. It's a really handy thing. It just randomly happens, but it's a really useful way of helping me to understand my emotions.
That's really cool. I wish I
Yeah.
had something like that.
I just have like a little radio or something in there, which is like kind of tunes into my different emotions and gives me a song to play. But yeah, like I guess for me, when I listen to music, it's very emotive and I feel it in my body. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, it's I think often, I guess that's not a usual way of identifying and making sense of emotions. So often I used to dismiss it and just be like, oh, whatever, I've just got this earworm, this song going around my head. But when I actually started listening to it, I'm like, this is actually a really helpful thing. And I guess that's just the way that my brain can interpret it and make sense of it and connect how I'm feeling to that outside world or that expression.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything like that. It's for me, it's just, I guess, trying to really intellectualize it. I'll sit there and ponder all of the things going on around me and decide whether or not I'm actually in, like experiencing a lot of stress, And if the answer is yes, you're under a lot of stress for all these different reasons, then I decide that I'm not capable of interpreting my emotions accurately, and I should not do anything about what's I'm feeling until I'm less stressed. Very in my head about it.
Yeah. And it's really, I guess one thing that has frustrated me in the past is like obviously in my work, I work with clients who have emotions and, therapeutically identifying their emotions, reflecting back. And I'm really good at picking up on other people's emotions and supporting them to kind of bring forth what's going on for them. But for myself, no. So so it's really interesting where there's also that misconception where autistic people don't have empathy. When it's like, well, for me, that's definitely not the case. But then there's the opposite for me. It's like empathizing with myself is really difficult. Empathizing with other people, great.
Yeah. And, for ADHDers, that we can often be accused of like being so impulsive that we're not ever thinking of other people's feelings. It's just all about our own. But I'm the same at my clinic. When I'm in a session with someone, it's like I can read their emotional energy, and they can be like, no, swearing blind that this is what's going on, and I'll curiously pose the question, I wonder if you might be feeling this, and maybe this might be happening for you. And you can see the face sort of change and like, it makes sense. And when you offer this alternative that resonates, and I guess it's kind of like finding that right word, where you and I like need the right word to fit.
Yes.
Sometimes the people I work with, my clients, they just need someone else to read their energy without the filters that they interpret everything through. So it's one of my favorite parts of my work is when I'm able to offer them an alternative and it fits for them.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. And it's just like, I'll be like, oh, is this what's happening? And they're, it's something they've been thinking about for like weeks or months. And they're like, yes, that's exactly it. And I'm like, yeah, we got there.
Yeah. But why can't I do that for myself? It's like my nervous system is set up to to read everybody else. And it's like, well, why can't I read me? That's annoying.
Yeah, it can be frustrating at times. But I think like I guess I'm learning to try and be more in my body and be aware of these sorts of things. And like it is something that we're going to talk about in the next episode. Like it's something that you can build and grow within yourself. But I think we might finish up there for today. And really keen for the next episode to kind of unpack some of these things a little bit more.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. So thank you to everyone for joining us for episode 7 of Divergent Dialogues. If you're really interested in the conversation we've had in this episode, please listen in for our episode next week and check out our previous episodes.
And don't forget, please share any research that you may have on autistic ADHD experience of emotions.
Yes.
Keen to read it.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Bye.